You wake up in a room you don't recognize. The bed is unfamiliar. The walls are bare. A single flickering light bulb swings from the ceiling like a metronome ticking away stolen time. There's no clock, no windows, just a mirror. And as you stand up, barefoot on cold concrete, you walk toward the glass and don't recognize the face staring back at you. It looks like you. The eyes are your eyes. The shape, the posture, the scars, they're all there, but the expression is hollow. Not sad, not angry, just silent, like it's been waiting. A voice echoes behind you. Not loud, not soft, just certain. You chose this. You spin around. No one is there. And yet, the words root themselves in your spine. You chose this? What does that even mean? You didn't choose the anxiety that greets you each morning like a shadow. You didn't choose the obligations, the expectations, the dead routines disguised as responsibilities. You didn't choose to feel disconnected from your own life, like you're watching it through a fogged-up window while time slips away. Or did you? Here's the paradox. You feel trapped. You feel cornered by circumstances, chained by your past, overwhelmed by demands you never asked for. But beneath it all, beneath the excuses, beneath the noise, there's a deeper truth you don't want to confront. What if the cage you're in is one you built yourself? Not out of malice, not even consciously, but through 1,000 quiet surrenders. The job you took just for now. The apology you never gave. The dream you shelved for someday. The silence you maintained when you should have screamed. And now, here you are. Breathing, moving, functioning, but not living. Not really. You've become a curator of your own existence, managing it like an inventory, not experiencing it like a story. You check boxes. You keep the peace. You scroll through highlight reels of other people's lives, wondering why yours feels so muted. So here's the question, the one most people spend their lives avoiding. If you are not in control of your life, then who is? Is it your parents' unfulfilled dreams echoing through your choices? Is it the algorithms feeding your attention like a drug? Is it fear, shame? The quiet dread of disappointing people who would never dare to chase what you secretly crave? And even deeper, when was the last time you made a decision that scared you? Not because it was reckless, but because it was real. You see, people aren't afraid of losing control. They're afraid of realizing they never had it to begin with. Because if you admit that you're not steering the ship, if you acknowledge that your life has become a series of automated reactions, you're left with only one terrifying conclusion. You are not living by design. You are surviving by default. And survival is seductive. It tricks you into thinking you're safe while it steals your time. It offers you routine instead of purpose, distraction instead of meaning, comfort instead of courage. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every second you delay taking ownership of your life, someone else will claim it for you. They'll use your time for their profits, your energy for their agendas, your silence for their comfort. They don't need to control you by force. They just need you to stay asleep. So, how do you know if you're awake? When was the last time you truly chose something? Not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of alignment, intuition, fire. When did you last say no, not politely, but powerfully? When did you last say yes, not out of guilt, but because your soul screamed for it? You see, control isn't about dominance. It's not about scheduling every hour or mastering some productivity system. It's about responsibility. The radical, frightening, liberating kind. The kind that says, "This is my life. Every consequence, every choice, every truth I've been too afraid to say out loud." But before you can take control, before you can rise, there's something you must understand. There's a reason you've been stuck. A hidden current pulling you under. One that's older than you, deeper than habit, and more insidious than you think. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. It's not lack of motivation. It's something far more ancient. Something woven into your psychology, reinforced by society, and quietly passed down like a curse dressed as wisdom. And until you confront it, until you drag it into the light, it will keep guiding your life from the shadows. So the real question becomes, what force has been living your life for you? And if you dare to look, will you still recognize yourself?
There is a sickness in the modern soul. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't scream. It whispers. You feel it when you're surrounded by people, but still feel alone. You sense it when your days are full, but your heart is empty. It's not depression, not in the clinical sense. It's not anxiety, not in the diagnosed form. It's something else, something more elusive, like a fog, like a soft sedative slipped into your morning coffee. It is learned helplessness, not just psychological, but existential. Carl Jung warned of it in Symbols. He spoke of the shadow, the disowned parts of ourselves that we bury deep because they disrupt the mask we show the world. When you reject your shadow, your raw will, your darker impulses, your repressed desires, you don't destroy them. You just abandon the helm of your own ship. And so life becomes something that happens to you, not from you. The psychologist Martin Seligman conducted experiments in the 1960s with dogs placed in cages. They were given mild electric shocks. At first, they tried to escape, but after repeated failure, they stopped trying. Even when the door was left open, they stayed. They had learned that resistance was useless. Humans are no different. You failed a few times. You were humiliated for speaking up. You loved deeply and were betrayed. So now, you play it safe. You follow the script. You trade authenticity for approval. And you tell yourself, I'm just being realistic. But there's nothing real about shrinking to fit someone else's expectations of who you're supposed to be. Schopenhauer called it the will to life. But even he understood that mere survival is not enough. What happens when that will becomes fractured? When it's numbed, silenced, conditioned by a system that feeds on your compliance? You become passive. Passive in your decisions. Passive in your beliefs. Passive in your own becoming. You let the world paint your identity for you, and you call it destiny. And yet, a small part of you resists. That's why you feel the tension, the dissonance, that deep, aching sense that something isn't right, that you were made for more, but you don't know how to reach it. That's your soul revolting against your own self-abandonment. Nietzsche saw it in the birth of what he called the last man, a creature of comfort, predictability, and safety. No longer striving, no longer dreaming, just content to be entertained, to avoid suffering, to not rock the boat. He warned that such people would trade meaning for ease, truth for consensus, freedom for structure. They would think they are free, because they no longer remember what freedom feels like. And that is the most dangerous kind of captivity. The one that hides behind smiles and schedules, behind doing the right thing, behind fitting in so perfectly that you lose yourself in the reflection. So how does it happen? It starts when you begin seeking validation over truth. When you ask, "What do people want me to be?" instead of, "Who am I becoming?" When you let external systems, culture, religion, education, media dictate the boundaries of your identity. They teach you to be obedient before you're even conscious of it. You sit still, raise your hand, memorize, repeat, obey. They don't ask you to think. They ask you to conform. They don't teach you how to suffer. They teach you how to suppress. And so when pain arrives, as it always does, you don't transform. You escape through distraction, through dopamine, through screens, through substances, through status. Aldous Huxley saw it coming. In Brave New World, he didn't predict a world ruled by fear. He predicted a world drowned in pleasure, where people would be so medicated by ease and entertainment that they would no longer care about freedom. Because when you feel good enough, you stop questioning. You stop digging. You stop confronting the real question. What is the cost of not living your truth? Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, understood this better than anyone. He said that those who lost meaning were the ones who died long before their bodies gave out. Meaning, not comfort, is what sustains the soul. But meaning requires struggle. It requires ownership. It requires a confrontation with suffering, not to run from it, but to give it purpose. So here you are, caught between two forces. The force that pulls you toward safety, and the force that calls you toward your own becoming. One whispers, "Stay small, stay safe." The other screams, "Burn the map, walk into the unknown." And the tragedy is this: you've been taught to fear the very fire that could set you free. So the real issue isn't that you're lazy, or lost, or unmotivated. The real issue is that you've been taught to fear your own power. You were told that wanting more is selfish, that speaking your truth is rude, that risking everything for something you can't prove is foolish. And so you buried the parts of you that didn't fit. But they didn't die. They wait. They wait in your chest, in your dreams, in your frustrations. They wait every time you lie to keep the peace. Every time you say, "I'm fine," when your soul is cracking. Every time you turn your back on the life you were meant to live. And now, it's all catching up. Because here's the secret. You can numb the symptoms. You can mask the pain. But you cannot outrun the consequences of self-abandonment. Not forever. So the question sharpens. If the hidden problem is that you've surrendered your own life to forces you never chose, then how long until you take it back? And what, exactly, will it cost you to reclaim your soul?